Shall we take the first caller?
Let's.
Yes.
And you know who's coming on? It's Derek, who was on at the weekend. Derek, good evening.
Good evening, Paul. How are you?
Hi,
Fine,
Derek.
Derek.
How's the throat there?
Is that from taking all those phone calls, Derek, after you went viral?
Even people, I'm a bus driver in a local company, and even everybody come on the bus and says, was that you? Was that you? People I worked with about 20 years ago was asking. My partner doesn't even like football, and people were phoning him up and asking, was that your partner? I would like to ask Leanne, how long does she think that Michael would get if there were more defeats? How long do you think the board will continually back him?
I don't think he'll get long, Derek, if I'm being honest. I don't think he'll get long. I think the reaction from the Rangers fans told you everything that you needed to know, and at the point you lose the fans and you lose football games, your days are numbered. I think it would be a matter of how quickly they could change it, the affordability of changing the manager, and who would come in to replace Michael Beale. I think would be the biggest test and deciding factor. But you know, Craig's touched on it. I think he said that he needs almost a seamless run, a faultless run, and I don't see the Rangers team that I've watched from the start of the season producing that. So I think one more defeat. I think the reality is that he probably could hedge his bets just now and hope that the League Cup would take him through to the turn of the year if he was able to deliver that. But I think another slip up with regards to the league and falling behind Celtic any further than they are, he would be gone.
Real Betis is obviously a tough one. So is that different? Obviously, if they were to lose in the league at St Johnstone, for example, or in the cup game against Livy, or Craig, what do you think?
No, again, I spoke on Monday, and I think that Michael does need a near perfect run, and I'm not silly enough to think that still would convince all Rangers supporters, such as is the noise and anger. And look, three things for me in terms of your manager at any club. Results, number one. The fans are very, very powerful. And if you lose a dressing room, now if you've lost three of those things, you're finished. There's no way back. The only hope at this moment in time, I believe, for Michael Beale is if that togetherness with the squad is still in harmony, and feel as if the direction is the right direction moving forward, because the fans clearly, majority of the fans that I've spoken to have gone. They've gone.
Really, the majority of them.
Gone.
What about the dressing room, though? That's key.
That I can't tell you, because I'm not privileged to any inside information, or I'm not on that training field or involved in what's happening there. But they're I mean, Derek, you'll probably agree, mate. They're the things in terms of when you know that if that is the situation, and I don't believe it is that severe at this moment in time, but that's the moment that a manager loses his job.
Derek?
I think, Craig, the worrying thing, I think Paul Le Guen and Giovanni Van Bronckhorst lost their job after the defeat to St Johnstone. We better hope history doesn't repeat itself in Everton Saturday.
For sure.
I said at the start of the season, Paul, the worrying thing is the lack of width in the team, Craig.
Yeah.
There's no flair in the team. I know we get rid of Sakala, but in Scottish football you need to find spreadsheet teams. And it seems to be that nobody knows where Lammer's meant to be playing. They've spent all that money in Danilo, and we're not seeing enough of him.
Well,
it's not getting found use, but hitting the ground running.
Yeah, well, I think, Derek, that it's clear that wingers are not really part of the setup that Michael plays with. And I think he's kind of been forced a little bit in terms of Matondo coming back into the team through some really positive moments, coming off the bench, making an impact. But naturally, he's the only wide player at the club at the moment that's available or being considered for selection, because Wright is Wright still there. He's not obviously going to get a siding, and the rest is quite narrow. And the width, Derek, is to come from the fullbacks. That's the way that he's been set up.
Leanne, what about against PSV, for example? He could have switched it.
Yeah, that's the bit for me that I think Craig touched on the fact Michael Beale speaks an awful lot, and he wants to give you all the answers, and at times what he needs to remember is that people don't forget. Fans certainly don't forget, and the media certainly don't forget. So when you produce comments like, you know, we've used a back three, get used to that, it will happen more often. For me, that game was crying out for a back three. When I looked at the options on the bench, when Barisic had to come off injured, I personally thought go to the back three, even put Balogun on. allow John Souttar to step into the game, have Matondo, who's, as Craig touched on, his performances have been very good. Get Tavernier higher up the pitch. You've got 2 sitting midfielders there anyway that can protect the back line. You've signed all those front players to never play 2 strikers together. It's criminal. And I think you don't need to be a brain of football to start to work it out. And I think fans are asking these questions. We're looking at it as a media and analysing it and scrutinising it. So you can only understand that if this continues and you don't see change and you don't see tweaks to the system, Derek's touching about that natural width. If you don't have wingers offering width, your wing backs or your full backs have to be your width. But at the same time, I don't think Rangers are defensively strong enough when you have Tavernier and Barisic, and that's been a continuing issue for a number of seasons now.
It's not new.
And I know there's chat about Barisic still being linked during the transfer window. Could he leave at this point in the window, which again I think still depletes the squad because he has been your first choice left back for so long. So there's so many questions, and I think the fact that Michael Beale wants to come out and continue to talk as much as he does with it really backing it up with any sort of proof or evidence is alarming.
You know what I would have liked to have seen also, Leanne, and Derek, you're involved in this conversation, mate, because you're in the background there, is central defensive pairing of Celtic. Now, I expected Nat Phillips to play, to be fair, who didn't start.
I think everyone did.
Yeah, well, and it was Scales and Lagerbielke. Now, they needed to be tested. And therefore, you say, like, you know, two up top. Let's really go and test these players and put them under pressure. And, I mean, don't get me wrong, full respect to both of those players. They come through and cruise the match. And again, that for me is poor from Rangers' part. You really got to go and test central defenders.
I think that's the only reason they cruised the match, though, Craig, is because Rangers didn't ask questions. Early on in the game, you look at the couple of times that Rangers turned them with the ball in behind. There were a couple of offside decisions. I think it was Dessers. Then the one that Lagerbielke is fouled and the ball taken off him because they were dwelling on it. I don't think they were good enough in possession. So I think the reality is Celtic have come out of it looking really good in the sense that players like a Scales have come back into the side. Lagerbielke, a new signing, has come through an Old Firm game, clean sheet at Ibrox in front of 50,000. But the reality is Rangers did not ask enough questions, and that is down to system and personnel choice.